Weatherman, we can't allow any further delay. So stop your waiting and hesitating and tell us.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. This is episode 88. Today is Friday, February 9th. I'm meteorologist Jeff Orgeron, joined by meteorologist Katie Suniga. Hey Katie.
Good morning, gentlemen.
And Chief Meteorologist Mark Nelson. Hey Mark.
Good morning, Jeffy. How are you?
You know what? I'm doing great considering we have husky puppies in Studio B right now because the Oregon Humane Society is in the building.
Oh, that's always fun.
Yeah.
Are they well behaved?
No. There was one. There's three of them, and there was one that was just kind of sitting along the side observing. The other two were scrapping away. But I imagine, actually, Katie, you're off today, so unfortunately you won't get to meet them. But I think, Mark, you'll probably get to interact with them later on.
What is going on? What's the reason?
It's for the Super Bowl, the Puppy Bowl.
Oh. Yeah. And obviously to help out the Oregon Humane Society, get some more dogs and cats adopted. So
I will take my jacket because I remember last time I was complaining we had puppies in once and it was for a good cause, but I had to get my suit clean just because there was a lot of puppy smell.
Well, they're huskies, so they'll probably shed a little bit. So,
oh gosh, okay, I'll bring a jacket.
Yep. All right, so if you are listening to the podcast, we encourage you to try out watching the podcast on some of our various platforms. It airs live at 2 p.m. on Fridays on Fox 12 Now. You can see that on Facebook Live. You can see that on our live streaming service, or you can actually see it on YouTube, our website, etc. But if you listen, we're going to try our best to describe the graphics that we're showing. But we encourage you to watch because then you get to see all the cool stuff that we've uploaded that Mark is showing right now. So the plan for today is we're going to be talking about some new national lightning data to kick off the podcast. Kind of see where more of the thunderstorms develop in the United States and where they don't. Hint, hint, we don't see a lot of here.
Surprise.
You're right. We're going to talk about this pesky east wind. If you feel like it's been around a lot more this winter, I think you're onto something. So we'll go over some of the numbers. Big question as we enter the middle part of February. Is it safe to remove snow tires?
Ooh,
spoiler alert,
question.
The boss removed his this week, but we're going to hear his reasoning behind that. Rainbow weather. We're kind of entering that time of year. Mid to late winter, early spring. The sun angle is still low. Showers and sun breaks. Katie's going to break down why we see rainbows out here, especially west of the Cascades. And let's talk about the extended forecast as well, so you can get an idea of what we're thinking is going to happen later this month and perhaps into early March. So that is all going to be packed into this podcast.
I was going to say that's a teaser. Let me tell you, folks, that extended forecast, because Jeff sends me the graphics, and I put some together last night. And when I looked at his, I'm like, I was looking at your graphics today. I won't give away too much, but I'm like, oh yeah, we're going real extended today.
I mean,
we're going to be good.
We can't really do it a lot on TV. I think we really need to hone in on the next 5 to 7 days on TV. But I mean, it's a podcast. We kind of set the rules, so we might. We
can do whatever we want. We can swear on this podcast, right? Because then we just bleep it out.
That's true. We could, except there's not a lot of post editing going on, so you'll have to handle that if you curse, Mark.
Okay. Maybe just filthy mouth. Okay.
Bite your tongue. All right. Mark, I'm going to let you take it away because you were excited about these graphics.
I was. Yeah. I think this came in on an email, but I don't remember where I got this. So I figured I better give credit. It's, kind of a year-end. You know what? I know what it was. I think it came from Visala, maybe the lightning.
That would make sense.
No, This is a different lightning network.
Oh?
I don't know. This may have come from, a lot of you have Davis weather stations. Maybe it came in there in a little newsletter. Actually, that is where it came from, the Davis Weather Instrument Company. And I get a little newsletter every few months. And it had the wrap-up of the 2023 lightning. And it had several different graphics, which are kind of interesting. And this is a weather podcast, so let's talk about it. This just shows flash density per county. All right, so the amount of flashes per county last year. And I think it's what we all expect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Katie, have you ever been to Orlando and stood in line at Disney World or Universal Studios in the summer?
So it's funny that you say that, because I was just thinking for one of my husband and I's anniversaries, we went to Disney World, and our anniversary is in late June, and we were flying in while there was a storm, and I saw cloud to cloud right outside my window. It was one of the freakiest things. Like, I love lightning. It is absolutely one of my favorite types of weather, but not when it's like right outside your airplane window.
Yeah, that's
like,
a little disconcerting.
That was very disconcerting, but it was super fun because we flew in one of their amazing storms, and we were in Disneyland, Disney World, while it was going on the next day again. So
almost every afternoon, right? Down there in Florida. Yep. That's because
it's so funny because you're there, and then it starts rolling in, and these carts come out. They are at the ready with the ponchos that they sell you for like $20 that are, little plastic bags that you just kind of put over. And then as soon as it clears up, the carts roll away, and it's back to business as usual.
It's very efficient there because it happens almost every afternoon. You see along the Gulf Coast in Florida, you got the warm, humid air. Excuse me. And so, we should give courtesy the AEM Earth Lightning Network. So these are kind of the places we expect. But then you go to this second graphic. You're like, wait a minute. What's going on here? So it's lightning hours by county. So notice then, it's like, wait a minute, there's more lightning in the west and southeast Oregon than parts of the southeast USA. So I had to say, I read the description, which I did not include here. So it's lightning hours by county. Two things going on. One is the counties are far larger in the west. Notice how much larger they are. The other is, and it's hours. So you could have lots of minor lightning events. For example, if there's one strike in that area of Nevada, kind of the like the UFO area of Nevada, northwest of Vegas there. You see one county that's pretty bright. You know what I mean? Area 51. You know what I mean? But in that area, I mean, that's as high as Central Florida. That's because you get one strike in the summertime. That's an hour. Okay. So same thing in southeast Oregon. So that's just interesting that if you do it that way, there's a little more. And then this one just shows, this third graphic shows the anomaly compared to average, like a 10-year average, I suppose. I think detailed lightning counts have been around, 30 years or so. And you see much of Oregon didn't have a little above normal. I mean, not a huge change, but some areas have more, some areas have less. So that is your lightning talk for February.
Wait, can we go over this one more time? This particular graphic, annual thunder hour anomalies. So what are we comparing this to? The historical data?
Yes, compared to average.
Okay.
This is 2023. Each graphic was for 2023 only.
Oh, got it. Okay.
See right back there, 2023.
Gotcha.
I did this at like 11:25 p.m. trying to get it done because there was no way I was going to get up early and do this morning.
So
we record this early.
This is interesting. This is telling us that we had more lightning in the interior Northwest than normal.
Right.
Last year, and Northern California, which you would assume probably led to more wildfires, but it wasn't a terrible wildfire season.
No.
Partially because of the really wet, year last year, or like wet winter, springtime. So that's interesting. Okay.
And the coastal storms, a lot of people don't know this. The Oregon coast and Washington coast, their lightning season is in fall and winter. Because, we get the unstable air that comes in, especially you really notice it like October, November, maybe into December.
That's our tornado season. Yeah.
You're right.
I'm still trying to do that story.
Yeah.
Which story, Katie?
The one about what tornado season is to us. And remember we talked about that when we had that last one. And it's been a rough one to get anybody to talk to me.
About tornadoes?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
The pretty weak sauce, as Mark would say.
We don't have a lot of tornado experts here, do we?
No. But it's not like I can talk to somebody that's in an actual tornado zone because they may or may not understand what leads to them where we are than compared to where they are. So I'm working on it, though. I haven't given up hope yet.
Keep working it, Katie. Keep working it.
All right.
I'm a determined person, so.
Okay, so we talked about this a little while ago. The east wind, that pesky east wind that we all don't really love, especially those folks that live near the mouth of the gorge. Mark, you've been kind of hinting at this graphic that you've been cooking up here.
Didn't we tease it last week? Yeah, didn't I say make sure I do it this week? Was that right?
I think so, yeah. Maybe been off camera, though. But anywho, it has been around more frequently with more. So the setup, typically, you have to have high pressure setting up east of the Cascades and low pressure west of the Cascades to draw that wind offshore or through the gorge or over the Cascades, etc. So we've had a lot of those setups, and this is kind of an interesting graphic. It looks like you're bringing us back to 2006, 2007. Correct?
Yeah, so this goes back, 14 years, 15 years? I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, let's not count. And it just shows what you're seeing is, in case you're listening, the days with, I call it east wind day, a day with easterly gusts 25 plus out in the east metro area, Troutdale Airport. That's where we have official records. So November through February is the main east wind season. Yes, we get it outside of those seasons, especially March. We'll get leftover east wind in March. But, by the end of February, it's mostly done, the hardcore stuff. And this just shows the number of easterly wind days. And the peak in the last, since 2006-07, that winter, the peak was in 09-10. We had 77 days that season with gusts over 25 at Troutdale. The other two second highest back in 14-15 and 16-17 and 15-16. And this year we're already up to 61 days, and we still have, how many days? I'm looking at my calendar. We got another 20 days left in the month, about 20 days left this month.
My question is, do you know if any of these correlate with El Nino, La Nina winters?
They sure do. The peak, 09-10.
Because I'm thinking about just what I've learned. This is my first full winter here.
Right.
I started midwinter last year, and it just seems like we had more of that, what Jeff just said, low to the west, high to the east setup this year than I remember seeing last year. Now, I could have just been settling in, and I wasn't quite paying attention, but it just feels like we've had that so many times.
No, you're right. I mean, when you look at the maps, even looking in the future here the next week, how many times do you see the isobars oriented north and south? Mm-hmm. And that gives the easterly wind. And we should point out, it is I mentioned, kind of hinted, it's a seasonal wind. I mean, it's gone in the warm season most of the time unless we have a heat wave. And it's caused by, like Jeff said, high pressure to the east. But that high pressure in general, this is a general thing, it's caused by that continent is colder than the oceans in the winter. And we have areas of low pressure that approach the coast. So as the continent warms in March, it starts getting temperatures, in the winter it's colder east of the Cascades generally than here, west of the Cascades. But once we hit March, the sun is getting pretty strong. And that's the month where the temperatures equalize. It's just about as warm east of the Cascades. And by April, it's getting warmer east of the Cascades, and that's when westerlies begin in the gorge. So that's when our wind mostly disappears.
And really quick, just for those folks that don't have, this extreme science background, the atmosphere is like a layered cake, and we are talking about at the lowest levels of the atmosphere. If there is high pressure east of the Cascades and lower pressure west of the Cascades, the air gets basically attracted or drawn to that area of low pressure, so it comes through the gorge. But it flips during the summertime. It tends to warm up a lot more during the afternoons east of the Cascades. That air rises because it's more buoyant, like a hot air balloon, and it creates surface low pressure, and it kind of gets drawn, the air gets drawn into the gorge, and so it's a little bit more breezy out toward the Dalles typically during the summertime. You think about like those higher fire danger days east end of the gorge into the Columbia River Basin, often because we have that diurnal wind event every day setting up during the afternoons.
In fact, it's interesting out at out at that end of the gorge, like Mosier, it's really noticeable. The little fir trees by the freeway, they all are just totally flagged to the east because all during their growing season, the wind is blowing from the west. Yet you come out here to Crown Point in the Corbett area, and trees are all flagged pointing towards Portland, the opposite direction. So in the middle, in Cascade Locks, they all point straight up. No, I'm just kidding. In the middle, it's kind of both ways. So they get a little bit in the middle, but yeah. Oh, so we're at 61 days. The record is 77. The record since I've been keeping track in the 2006-07. So we're about 16 days off the record. It seems unlikely we'll hit it, considering looking at the maps. But we are just November through January. It was the highest since of all the record-keeping days. So during that period, that first part of winter, November, December, and January, it was the highest we'd seen in at least 15 years.
So, and here we go. Peak wind gusts. This is during the recent event in January.
Right, and we're reaching back 3 weeks. Oh no, now it's 4 weeks since the big Saturday, the 13th storm. Is that the right date?
It's almost a month.
It is the 13th. Yeah, it is a month coming up tomorrow. So we've seen some of these numbers, but over the last week, it was so helpful. The viewers, I went on Facebook, two Facebook groups, and then on my main Facebook page, Mark Nelson, the professional page. And I said, hey, we're missing peak wind gusts. We had a lot of sensors go down during that big easterly windstorm. And then a lot of the damage was in areas that are very treed. Think the West Hills, Mountain Park, is that what it's called? Mountain Park and Lake Oswego, Mount Sylvania area, where we had a lot of, big fir trees crashing down. But we don't have many good sensors. Like I think we all know, look at that Lake Oswego gust. That's the only one I have from Lake Oswego that I can find, 30 miles per hour. We know it gusted way above 30 in Lake Oswego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was
Absolutely.
great because I had one viewer reach out, the Bonnie Slope. He said, hey, I've got a well-exposed Davis Weather Pro, and it got up to 55, and then the power went out. Healy Heights, that's up basically Council Crest area. I had one that was 55 up there and one that was 58. Somebody else in Cedar Mill. Oh, maybe that was him, 51 at Cedar Mill. And then Sunset Transit Center, that place is really exposed. Highway 217 and 26 right by Providence St. Vincent.
Yeah.
48, but then the power went out pretty early, like 10 a.m. that morning. Yeah. And so it was really great that viewers really stepped up and got us those peak gusts. So really helpful stuff.
Yeah, we appreciate that. We appreciate your photos. And by the way, if you ever want to submit something interesting weather-wise, if it's a video or a photo, the best way to do it is kptv.com/weather or through our weather app. That way we can actually use it on the podcast or on TV or social media.
So I think we're able
to. The best one.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say, I think we're able to say there were probably gusts 50 to 60 that downed those trees in the West Hills, and to have an east wind that strong was unusual in those areas, and that's probably what caused the damage there.
So the other thing, Mark, I was hoping you would explain, because we talked about this, we were talking about that east wind that day, because I typically didn't think of the Lake Oswego area as having the strong easterly winds, and you explained to me, kind of what happened, how it came down and stuff like that, just because I've had a lot of people ask me, they're like, we usually don't get that strong wind in Lake Oswego. So I was kind of hoping you'd share that with everybody again too. Oh, because
the wind as it comes out of the gorge, in this case especially when there's areas of low pressure to the southwest, it really does angle down to, instead of coming straight out east to west, it does angle a little west southwest. Oh wait, you can see my cursor, right?
Yeah.
So instead of, you'd think it would follow the river, right? No, if there's low pressure way out here off the Pacific, it comes out and continues out to the west southwest. So it's heading through southeast Portland, Happy Valley, Gresham. And there's almost nothing more than just a mile or two away from the Columbia River to the north in Clark County. Often there's nothing. Yeah. Totally calm up there.
Which makes for really difficult forecasting on those breezy east wind mornings, where if we're in that wind sheltered spot just to the north, it's like 10 degrees cooler, right?
Right.
So nightmare.
At least we know, and it does. Most of the time it behaves that way. Every once in a while you'll get an east wind that'll come more from the east-southeast this way. But most of the time, at least if we're watching as good meteorologists, we notice those things, and they happen over and over and over again. And so that's kind of like forecast memory around here.
Well, and I seem to remember you and I were very specifically watching where that low was going to come in, and it seemed like it was a little farther south, which that's what would have drawn that wind down more rather than just straight off to the east.
Right.
All right, this stirred up a lot of discussion on social media. Mark posted a photo of his vehicle. This is what we're showing you right now if you're just listening to the podcast. And he has removed his snow tires. And
I did it.
Some people think that you just cursed us the rest of the winter.
I jinxed it? Did I jinx it? Cursed it?
Yeah, you may have. But I think the folks that are watching those long-range outlooks are like, he's probably onto something.
Here's the deal. I would not swap your tires out. If you're paying, like most of us do, and usually I do, but my son and I just bought the jack. We already had the jack, and we bought the little the impact wrench, or impact, whatever it's called. So we've just done these last 2 times, and so I only did that because it's free. I could do it in 30 minutes, and if something shows up, a real storm somehow shows up more than 2 weeks out, as we'll talk about, I'm sure we're safe until that time. But if something shows up, you know what? I can put them back on. If I were paying for it, do not take your snow tires off yet unless you really want to gamble. I mean, it's possible we're done with that stuff. I mean, there's a decent chance we're done with that stuff, but I wouldn't risk it. So I don't want to encourage people to spend $120 just because I did.
And just to kind of respond to some of the comments that you've had, Mark, and I know you're thinking the same thing. March and April, yes, we can get snow. We have had snow. April was our latest snow on record. That happened in 2022. But it gets much more difficult for it to stick on area roads, especially by the late morning and afternoon with that higher sun angle. Of course, we can get snow on the trees, and we get snow on the grass, and we can get snow on the roads. It just, the likelihood of it sticking all day long and shutting down the metro area becomes lower as the days go on, the weeks go on into March and April.
Basically, there's nothing in our historical record that shows an all-day snowfall that would shut down the city and stay near or below freezing after about the first 2 days of March.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So just wanted to give you a snapshot of the next couple of days heading into the weekend. Saturday looks like it's going to be a great day, partly to maybe mostly sunny in some spots. We're confident we're going to have a lot of sunshine east of the Cascades, kind of a mixed bag of sun and clouds west of the Cascades, and it's going to be dry. I think the sunnier spots, if you guys would agree, probably hit the mid-50s, and the west of the Cascades, that is, and the cloudier spots probably low 50s. It's going to be pretty mild out there.
Yeah, once we hit mid-February, even if our 850 millibar temps are only 0 or -2, we easily hit 50. The sun starts getting stronger.
That was a snapshot of 2 o'clock Saturday. This is a snapshot of 2 o'clock Sunday. This is just one computer model, our in-house IBM graph model, and this is showing the potential for some showers and sun breaks. A weak weather system is going to be developing to our north, and it's going to drag probably a weak front across our region. That's why we'll have just a few showers out there from time to time, and I think it'll probably end up being a drier day than a wetter day. But I bring this up because we're kind of in that season now with the lower sun angle, the showers and sun breaks. We've been getting photos from all of you at home of the rainbows that you've been spotting out there. So I thought it was a good time to maybe break down why we see rainbows, how they form. Katie,
Yes.
I know you love the rainbows as well, so
I
wanted
do.
to give you
Yeah.
an opportunity to break this down for all of our loyal viewers.
And what's really fun is I just did a pre-K, a preschool visit the other day, and this was one of the questions that they sent me ahead of time. They came up with their whole little list of questions they wanted me to go over, and we were there like, how do rainbows, why do we see them? So I thought it was fun that I got an opportunity to share this again here. So what we have here is a graphic showing the sun with a sunbeam and a very large drop of water.
Very big.
It's awesome. The raindrops, as the sunlight hits it, it breaks the sunlight into separate colors, the refraction that happens. And so the sunlight hits the drop and then it refracts and breaks it up. And then it does it off that back of the drop, so it reflects those colors back to our eyes at a 41-degree angle and around the sunbeam, and then it's headed toward you. And what we're seeing is basically the reverse of those colors. So the red is at the top, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and that's on the way that we see it is basically just the sunlight hitting the water and then bouncing it back. That's the short version.
Did you guys call it Roy G. Biv growing up, to remember?
When I grew up, there was no indigo. It was red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple.
Oh.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, to me, it's the same, so.
Yeah.
Little
but
color
this one has
challenged.
indigo violet. As I was a kid, it was just purple. There weren't two colors, and it wasn't indigo.
I learned
like
it from my
it.
wife.
What's
when
that?
we were dating or early marriage, I mean, I'd already been in my TV career a few years, and she said, "Oh, it's Roy G. Biv," and I said, "What?" She said, "Roy G. Biv," and I said, "Who is that?" Like, what kind of small town? What kind of small town Oregon did you grow up in? Oh, wait, so did I. And she said, "Oh no, we learned it Roy G. Biv," and I almost always give my wife credit, as I should, on this graphic. Yeah.
I remember talking about rainbow weather before on air, and I mentioned a comment I think a lot of people appreciated. If you're ever wanting to see a rainbow and we have the showers and sun breaks type of pattern, look to the west in the morning, look to the east in the afternoon. Because it's opposite of which way the sun is. Like, if the sun is rising out of the east, you're going to see the rainbow toward the west.
Because that's where the beam goes in, reflects it back toward us.
It's the anti-solar point. So if the sunshine is going through your head, your eyes, it has to go through your head. It doesn't go really through your head, but if it has to go through your head, and the direction you're looking is where the rainbow has to be. So your back of your head needs to be pointed at the sun.
Yeah. And you have to be at the right angle. You can't just, it
can't be too low or too high. Of course, then there's no rainbow.
Yep. I hope the sun is not going through your head. But anyway, we'll move on.
Right? It's early.
All right, so this was a view of Timberline this morning at 8 o'clock.
Looks good.
Right before I came in here, Timberline was reporting about 6 inches of new snow over the past 24 hours, about 5 inches at Skeeble. And Meadows is reporting only a couple of inches. This was definitely a more favorable, like a western-facing mountain slope type of event where we saw more snow piling up, western-facing slopes as opposed to eastern-facing slopes. So And we probably have another 1 to 3 inches left out of the system, depending on when you listen. When you listen, you might not. Well, we might be completely done with this precipitation. So I bring this up because it's probably going to be a really good time to go maybe night skiing tonight as the precipitation wraps up. And the weekend, Saturday especially, is going to be really nice in the Cascades. And Sunday will probably feature a few snow showers here and there. So I wanted to get right into the snowpack, and we'll start up in the state of Washington.
Wait, Jeff.
Go ahead.
Where did you get this graphic? Because I can't find the Oregon version of this anymore.
I can't either. I was looking everywhere for it.
Where did you find this one?
I found it.
The same link?
No, actually.
I mean.
Yeah, it was through the USDA. Yeah, I just Googled Washington mountain snowpack and snow water equivalent. This brought me to it. So.
Strange.
But yeah, you have to navigate to that interactive map for the Oregon mountain snowpack. Exactly. Right. So I just took a screenshot of that. But anywho, what we're seeing is a very poor snowpack, a low snowpack up in the Washington mountains. Anywhere from, looks like the lower Columbia and the lower Snake, upper Yakima are all in the 70-ish range for 70% of the normal snowpack for this time of year, February 9th. But everywhere else is seeing even lower snowpack. So this is not a great sign for Washington, but kind of reflects what we were more or less expecting for an El Nino year.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? How it's worse farther north, which is typical for an El Nino year, strong El Nino.
And what we're showing here is the Oregon mountain snowpack, which hasn't changed, if I recall, a whole lot since our last podcast last week. Much of the state of Oregon, including the Hood, Sandy, Lower Deschutes region, Willamette region, 75 to 85% of the normal snowpack this time of year. We do have some areas that are in the 90 to 98% of snowpack. Southeast corner of the state, southeast quadrant rather, is seeing above normal snowpack. But to maintain this or to get to a point where we want to be, we would probably need a healthy dose of snow consistently for the next week or two to maintain or pop those numbers up. And, well, we're not necessarily seeing that. Mark, go ahead. I see you have some thoughts.
Well, I was just going to ask you real quick. I had that quizzical look on my face.
You did,
yeah.
Did you grab this graphic today, or did I do this one?
I grabbed it today, this morning.
Oh, so it is fresh, because I thought maybe I messed up and it's an old graphic, but this is correct. All right, good to know.
And this was from a special request by Mark. He wanted an interactive 500 millibar heights outlook for...
Jeff, we always do 500 millibar heights on this thing in the winter.
Yeah, we do.
Come on, it's a weather podcast.
We do it in the summer, too, I think.
I just didn't think we'd go out to 400, 500 hours in the future.
No, I didn't. What I did was I took the Euro extended, and I did the rest of February. So we could just have a...
Oh, that's what you did.
Yeah. So this is like the last 20 days of February, next 20 days.
Yeah, so we should point out, here's the deal. For the weather, I was going to say for the weather geeks out there, but who else would be? Regular people do listen to this, but... So the European model, it runs 4 times a day. 2 of those times each day, the off hours, it runs to 144 hours. Oh boy, now I've already messed it up before I even finished the sentence. It basically has 2 shorter runs each day. And then once each day, it runs out to 10 days. But then the ensemble, including a control run, which will soon become also the high-res run, runs out to 15 days. It's either 15 or 16 days. So twice a day, we do see out to 15 days on the Euro, more or less, along with its ensembles. But then there's an overnight run of the Euro that goes out 46 days every day. It used to come out twice a week. So we can see the Euro puts out a long-range 46-day forecast, including an ensemble system of 100 members, I think. And this is the ensemble average of those 100 members, if I'm correct, that goes out. Jeff, you only took it to the end of February to be reasonable, but it does actually go out 46 days, so it goes out
into March.
To the end of March.
Well into March, yeah.
But accuracy goes way. Cliff Mass, a professor at the UW, has done studies, and he said, once you get beyond about 2.5, 3 weeks.
Yeah. So before we dive into what we're seeing here, the orange shades tell us that we're going to have higher geopotential heights, which basically means the air mass is going to be thicker, likely warmer, drier. That tends to be the case when we see higher geopotential heights. The cooler shades, the blue shades, indicate more troughing and the potential for more inclement weather. And typically, if we see a lot of ridging as opposed to troughing, we tend to assume that we're going to be seeing drier stretches, maybe more mild stretches. So what are your guys' thoughts here? Like, what are the things that are standing out to you when you watch the loop?
It actually
Katie?
gets cooler toward the later part of February.
You're right. I see that too, Katie, right near the end, maybe the last few days of the month.
Like we have ridging through Valentine's Day, and then once we get to like the 19th, 20th, it goes cooler. All the way to the end of the...
That's not a wrong interpretation of this, because this is like looking at art, kind of. I see that too. Although I think at first the lower heights that you see, not there. Okay, here we go. I wish we could stop this, but it's one file.
Right there.
Right when you get to around the 18th, 20th, you do see that jet. I think the jet stream is stronger to our south, right there.
Yeah.
But then at the end, there's definitely what's going on right there. It looks like high pressure in the Pacific instead of here. So we'll see. Yeah. But definitely, we're still in this El Nino type pattern, at least through about there, through there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the 25th. So we're in this kind of splitty pattern or ridging just to our north for quite a while.
Well, and didn't we talk about that the other day? We were saying, once we get into March, especially a little, as we get a little later, like we're in a strong El Nino right now, but it backs off a bit and it starts kind of weakening. And that's when we sometimes could see some snow or something come in because we're getting sort of a weaker El Nino pattern. Yeah,
the pattern sometimes weakens in March.
Yeah.
And this gives us a better interpretation of what we can expect long range, especially for those that don't look at 500 millibar maps every day. So this is an extended outlook, the Euro Ensemble temperature outlook for Portland, showing obviously a lot of low to mid 50 afternoons, overnight lows for the most part are staying above freezing. So this, immediately when I glance at this, I think our chances for lowland snow or ice are slim to none at this point.
Right. Yeah.
And jumping ahead.
Boring.
Yeah, boring. And I'm going to. This is the GFS ensemble. Similar, upper 40s, low 50s, lots of overnights in the mid to upper 30s. So a lot of similarities here. I want you to focus on the bottom part of the screen.
Nice. Look at that highlighted, Jeff. Going the extra mile.
So
team player.
That's showing the extended outlook for 850 millibar temperatures. So that's at about 5,000 feet. You measure the temperature in Celsius, and it spits out what it's going to be. And if we follow basically the blue line, the control line, okay? If it's below the yellow, that tells me that we're probably going to have snow. If snow is falling, it'll be sticking near or below the passes. If we see that line go above the yellow line, then we're probably going to be looking at a higher snow event if snow is falling. Would you guys just quickly assume that? So what I'm seeing is kind of a teetering back and forth type of deal. There isn't a significant warm up for a long stretch of time coming. There isn't a significant cool down coming. I mean, I think if we're at Ski Bowl, we're at times for the next couple of weeks, we're probably going to have wet snow events, maybe some rain, maybe some decent snow at times. But if we're at one of the higher resorts, Timberline, for instance, we're probably going to be in a more favorable situation.
Little higher than we'd like to see this time of the year. Boy, that says El Nino too. Just a warmish, not incredibly warm, but warmish setup.
This one really stood out to me.
So that was, we should point out that, so that graphic went out. That was the normal Euro comes out twice a day. That goes out 15 days.
Yeah, that goes out to, I think, the 23rd. Yeah.
And then here's the long one.
This is the extended rainfall or precipitation outlook by the Euro model. And I highlighted the end of February, start of March. And if you follow that blue line there, that's the control line, roughly what the extended outlook is telling us we'll get as far as precipitation goes. It's keeping us below 2 inches for the rest of the month.
And let's point out that grid point is in the Cascade foothills. It'd be like where I live, east of Troutdale.
A wetter spot than Portland is what Mark is saying.
So that's not a lot of rain for the rest of the month, supposedly.
Well, and that follows too when we were looking at the map.
Yeah,
it gets a little wetter, because we looked at the cooler temperatures and things like that as we got into March. So maybe March will be a little more wet.
This is kind of interesting though. The GFS ensemble precip outlook is in awe. They're at odds essentially. The GFS.
Oh, wait a minute, GFS. We're going to strike this map. We're moving on.
You're right. I think it's just worth mentioning that the GFS is at least giving us, by the end of the month, another 4 inches, 3 to 4 inches, perhaps. So maybe we won't end the month on a totally dry note, or we'll end with pretty decent rainfall. Again, what was it? How much?
I think the GFS extended resolution is really low too, much lower than the Euro. We're going to have to look that up. That'll be my job for next week. What's the resolution of these extended runs? Because that may be why it shows much wetter. It thinks more or less we're in the foothills.
All right, let's go ahead and move on here.
That's all we have.
What?
No term of the week?
Well, I think we've gone long enough, Jeff.
Yeah, I know we have.
We've covered everything.
We have. Look, I think the bottom line is
it can't end yet.
I was having so much fun.
It has to end.
The party's over. No, I wouldn't. Basically, the reason Mark took those snow tires off is because in the long range, we just don't see anything dangerous coming our way.
No.
And that includes windstorms. I just don't see any significant wind coming either, Mark.
No big lows. I mean, if we're in split flow or ridging to our north, that is just not a pattern to get us deep lows coming up against the coastline. It's just really a meh. I mean, it's like such a boring weather pattern. And that is typical. I will tell you, and we covered this last week, most El Nino winters just kind of fade away. In February, it fades between February and early March, mid-March. It just fades from it's kind of warmish winter weather to kind of coolish, wettish March weather. I mean, usually there's no defining. We just kind of gradually move into early spring with no fanfare.
And Katie kind of hinted at this a little while ago. It sounds like El Nino, and it's not just sounding like it. There is data to back this up. El Nino seems to be weakening, and if I'm not mistaken, NOAA issued a La Nina advisory. Maybe it's not an advisory. Maybe it's a step below that.
I don't think they did.
They're giving us a greater than 50% chance, though, of a La Nina forming. So I think in one of the upcoming podcasts, we're probably going to be at least mentioning that, and it'll probably become more of a discussion.
Yeah, I think we need an ONI, Oceanic Nino Index section to our podcast. We haven't really talked El Nino specifically since maybe October and November, so we should probably give an update coming up because that does appear to be the setup. We're at least El Nino is going away. We know that. Although it's still quite strong in the Pacific. I mean, it's still influencing our weather pretty strongly.
Yeah, if you didn't know this, Mark once a week looks at ONI indices with his espresso. It's like his routine. No, I'm kidding. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us for episode 88 of the Fox 12 Weather Podcast. We're going to be back next week, probably on Thursday, with updates about what is turning out to be a fairly mild winter. So have a great weekend. Enjoy that Super Bowl and that dry Saturday as well. We'll talk to you soon.
The delay. So stop your waiting and hesitating and tell us, please tell us